Peter Schrager, Andrew Hawkins, Adam Schefter here for the hour. So much happening around the league, and you're in the right spot to hear about all of it with us today. Let's begin with the Bengals, you guys. That's where we go first. Star pass rusher Trey Hendrickson is not present for minicamp as he awaits a new deal in Cincinnati. And then Shemar Stewart, who they drafted to bolster their D-line, had been there. He's now left in the midst of a contract dispute. More on that in moments. But first, Bengals head coach Zac Taylor was asked about Shemar Stewart earlier today.
I think for all the rookies, you'd like them to be on the field, but certainly there's things that happen over the course of an NFL career, and this is one of them right now. So he's been in the meetings. He's been positive in that way. He's been learning. He's been a good learner, and we look forward to getting him back on the field quickly. There's education that happens with all the rookies that we do our best to educate them. Number one, we want to protect our team in our locker room, and so I understand when there's frustration there, but that's how he chose to do it, and that's his prerogative, and we look forward to getting him back in the fold.
I know every head coach in the NFL has to talk about contract stuff, but I feel like Zac Taylor's had to do more of it than the other coaches. He's gotten really good at it. Adam, what more can you tell us about Shemar Stewart's contract talks?
Well, this is an unusual situation. It should not be difficult to get a deal done with a rookie first-round draft pick, and yet in this particular case, for various reasons, it is. We start out with the fact that the Bengals are trying to get language that they haven't had in their contracts before that other teams have used that would void guarantees if essentially he got cut at some point during his career. Also, Shemar Stewart has hesitated and refused to sign an injury waiver, which most rookies just go out and sign, that protects them in the event of injury at a minicamp. So he hasn't signed the waiver. They've asked for language that other teams have used that they haven't used before, and it's led to a situation where today Shemar Stewart removed himself from mandatory minicamp when some would have wondered why he was even there to begin with, being that he hadn't signed his contract or signed the waiver. And so this whole situation has gotten more and more muddled as it has gone along and shows no signs of ending soon, despite the fact that it should be relatively simple to sign a first-round draft pick.
Yeah, to just add on to what Adam's saying, he's spot on. Look, they had a draft pick 18th overall and 28th overall the last 2 years. Those guys didn't have this language in their contract. That's the real point here. The other issue is, hey, if Jamar Chase doesn't have this language and he signed a deal, and T. Higgins doesn't have this language and he just signed a deal with you guys as recent as March, why should Shemar have to sign that deal in June? Last but not least, Trey Hendrickson is still going and is not there, and the Shemar Stewart team is watching that closely. Hey, if you do figure out a new deal for Trey Hendrickson and you do include that language, well, we'll be open to sign with the new language, but why should Shemar Stewart, and this is from the player side, why should he be the guinea pig in all this and be the first person in Bengals franchise history to have to sign this deal when there were deals done as recent as March with some mega stars?
Yeah, it's an interesting conundrum, and I'm glad you illustrated all that, Peter. Hawk, let's talk about the way that Cincinnati's front office has prioritized contracts so far this offseason. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it puts a lot of pressure on the organization, and it is such a trickle-down effect. And not just the organization. Look, they made the decision to bring in Higgins and Chase on really big deals. They typically don't pay two wide receivers those amounts of money, but they're trying to keep their quarterback and Joe Burrow happy. So I do think for him, it puts a little pressure there as well, and that's where the trickle-down happens. Because they make that decision, it makes it a little tougher for the Trey Hendrickson situation, and then Shemar Stewart, who they draft, which is a part of probably their insurance policy on Trey Hendrickson. Now that's muddied. So it will be interesting heading into the season because this is a distraction. It shouldn't be. And if it lingers in the training camp for Cincinnati, a smaller market, to have the national headlines be something like this permeate throughout the locker room, you hope that it doesn't have any hangover into when the real games start being played.
Yeah, some of the numbers you just saw on the screen there illustrated just how great that Bengals offense was. We know about that. It was a championship-level offense. The defense, though, however, certainly the priority or should be going forward. The Bengals allowed 35 points 5 times last season. You're not going to win games that way.
This week, they moved on from their former team captain, Jermaine Pratt-Cuttom, who's now signed a 1-year deal with the Las Vegas Raiders. So he goes out to Las Vegas, a big boost to the Raiders linebackers. Pratt's a good player, somebody that the Bengals just could not afford to pay right now, and he found a home in Las Vegas. As for TJ Watt, also not at the Steelers' mandatory minicamp, Mike Tomlin said that the is hopeful that both sides will be able to work out a long-term deal. It's what Watt wants. It's what the Steelers want. He's the heart and soul of that team. But his departure from mandatory minicamp at a time when Aaron Rodgers was coming in got some headlines, and this is something now Pittsburgh will have to address before training camp begins.
Interesting. Now, speaking of Pittsburgh, that's where we go next in our camp tour. Aaron Rodgers got the tent now, and this time it's got a Steelers logo on it with the campfire. He's out there. He said he's trying to be a servant leader for this team, helping however he can. And probably the best way to help, win games, but that comes later. For now, it's getting accustomed to that new team and all that. Here's his offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, thinking Rodgers still has a lot left in the tank.
Really look at in the last year. I mean, the guy's throwing the ball at an extremely high level. I mean, you're talking about one of the greatest passers in the history of this game. I mean, not many guys have thrown the football like Aaron Rodgers, and obviously he's still doing that at a high level. I believe he said something similar yesterday. You know, again, where you have a guy like I had Matt Ryan at the end of his career. Matt, as a younger player, was a little bit different. You know, Aaron's, you know, sure the way he sees the game is different than he was when he was 25 to being in his, you know, early 40s. But he's still throwing the ball at a high level.
Interested to see how Arthur Smith creates this offense around Aaron Rodgers. Now, the Steelers have been looking for answers since Big Ben retired after the 2021 season. Since then, Pittsburgh's offense ranks 26th in points per game and yards per play. They're also struggling to punch it into the end zone with the fourth worst red zone efficiency, and their quarterbacks rank 20th in total QBR. Woo. Peter, how much confidence do you have in the Steelers this season now with Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I've been very high on the Steelers the last few days. So high that today on First Take, I suggested they could be Super Bowl contenders, and Stephen A. Smith gave me a hug on air. I mean that. And the reason I say that is because they didn't make these moves to just get to where they were the last few years, which is a nice Saturday or Sunday afternoon wild card game and then get bounced out of the playoffs. They could have very easily done a half measure here. They could have signed another quarterback, or they could have gotten panicked when Rodgers wasn't there in April and May. Instead, they waited all this way, and they did trade a second-round pick and paid DK Metcalf $30 million. Those are not the moves of a team that's rebuilding. That's the moves of a team that sees things happening this year with a window. I'll really quickly say Arthur Smith, underrated offensive mind. When he got to Atlanta, it was the last year of Matt Ryan's career, and his quarterbacks since have been Marcus Mariota, Taylor Heineke, and then a collection of guys last year in Pittsburgh that were basically on one-year deals. I think there is a great, great possibility that this Pittsburgh offense is a lot different and a lot better than many are expecting it to be.
Yeah, I mean, I agree it could be better, but I myself don't have super high expectations, right? From what we've seen from Aaron Rodgers over the last couple of years, there's a lot of factors that went into that, and even what he was asked to do for the New York Jets in the locker room, in the organization, it's a lot different with Mike Tomlin at the helm in Pittsburgh. But that being said, even with DK Metcalf coming in, a thing that they struggled with last year, one of their many struggles, was the fact they didn't have a solidified number 2 receiver. So it made it really hard to get the full, spectrum of George Pickens. We talked about it earlier. DK Metcalf right now could have a lot of the same issues. They don't have a solidified number 2. They have a lot of guys who are vying for playing time and vying for that role to be the guy. But for Aaron Rodgers, if safeties can play over the top of DK Metcalf, a receiver who's used to having Tyler Lockett on the other side, it could still be tough offensively.
Well, listen, right now, Hawk, they're expecting Calvin Austin to be their number 2 wide receiver opposite DK Metcalf. Let's not forget that they also have former second-round draft pick Roman Wilson coming back. And if Wilson turns out to be the player they thought he was when they drafted him in the second round out of Michigan, and they have Calvin Austin, who they believe in, they might have a better, deeper group of wide receivers than people realize and are expecting. But Super Bowl, Peter? Super Bowl? When you're in the same division as the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals? Super Bowl? When the Pittsburgh Steelers have lost their last 6 postseason games? Super Bowl? When Aaron Rodgers hasn't won a postseason game in over 1,600 days? That's a lot to ask. I'm not saying they can't do it. They're good. They're capable. But they have a lot to overcome to get there.
Adam Schefter just cut the hype video for when they make that run, man. That's going to do numbers, Schefter.
That's on the America's team video.
That means they made the run. That means they did the work. They did the work then.
Here's my point on that. Because I think I got I got crushed online, and I live in a house with a son who's a diehard Ravens fan. So trust me, I heard it from him too. I will say this:
he's not talking to you anymore.
They didn't make these moves without that site.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't make these moves to just be okay again. Like, they went for it. They swung the bat. So to me, the expectations are a Super Bowl.
Okay, Hawk, you haven't commented yet on what you think your expectations for the Steelers. Is Super Bowl too rich for you for the Steelers?
Oh, it's way too rich. As much as I love the organization and what they stand for, they do always go for it, Shrey, because they don't do rebuilds. They can win with bad quarterbacks, let alone one of the most talented ever. That doesn't necessarily mean they got the pieces to get it done.
Okay, as it relates to Rodgers, you guys, he'll look to get back to the postseason for the first time since 2021. That's how long it's been since he's even made the postseason.